So, these last couple of days have been absolutely jam-packed with some hard-learned lessons. Today's lesson just so happens to be to listen to Des when he talks. Because for a long time, Des has been recommending me a game called Project Gorgon, and I, in my infinite stupidity, have been making up tons of reasons and excuses why I will constantly be getting to the game later. This is dumb. This was dumb of me. I was stupid for doing that. Because I've finally played Project Gorgon, and guess what? It's fantastic. I'm better for having played it, and I'm dumber for having not played it too. So what the hell is Project Gorgon? Well, Project Gorgon is a early access indie MMO RPG developed and published by Elder Games. It's got developers who've worked on a bunch of other MMOs that I have absolutely never played before. I won't even pretend. But there's something about this MMO in particular that is very, very special. And I'm very excited to talk to you about it, and also excited to tell you about why it's a tough sell for a bunch of different reasons. So, we are once and for all done with the stalling. Let's get into Project Gorgon and talk about it. After some very basic character creation, our character is zapped by some wraith-looking people. They say something about wiping our minds. Next thing you know, we find ourselves stuck on an island. We've got no recollection of who we really are, or why we're here, and aside from some basic tutorials about combat, which I'll go over later, we're basically told that it's our job to figure out what's going on and how to get off this stupid island. Yep, that's right, they took the plot of the island and made it the tutorial for their MMO. So after reading a pop-up saying that this game is all about exploration, I loot a backpack that's been abandoned on the beach, find a sword and some food, and am immediately attacked by some spooky, scary skeletons. So obviously I put the work in. Nothing too fancy, but anything to get them off of me. Starting off, you only have one attack skill, but it doesn't take you very long to unlock another. The second attack skill that I unlocked has like a sort of rage mitigation, which is what makes the combat in this game very interesting. See, the game itself is technically a basic tab target MMO. If you've played a bunch of them, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but if you haven't, Then you tap your tab button in order to switch between targets, and then you press whatever buttons are associated with your skills. But where this game sort of differs is that instead of building up a meter, an energy meter, or having a mana bar of your own, of course you do have one, the enemies have a rage meter that builds up as they fight you, and you're able to see that visually. The second attack skill that I unlocked actually lowers their rage bar. It mitigates it. When the rage bar is full, whatever you're fighting will do some sort of special attack on you. And that attack will depend on, of course, the monster, the mob. But it can do things like a bunch of damage extra. It could stun you for a set period of time, poison you, and I imagine that there are tons more variations to their rage attacks. So a big part of combat isn't just to spam all of your attack skills to kill the enemy as fast as possible. It's also to make sure that they don't get a chance to use whatever special skill they have up their sleeve, because you're not always fighting one-on-one. See, while I was on the beach, it was fine to fight a skeleton. But as I moved up the shoreline, I started to find things like spiders, skeletal archers, and a velociraptor. It kind of reminded me of the one from Tekken 3. It was odd. Now, by themselves, these enemies don't really pose that much of a threat, but there was a situation where I was fighting a skeleton archer, and of course it didn't want to be near me, so it ran away. And I wanted to kill it, so I chased after it. But before I knew it, I had walked into the range of several other enemies, but I still hadn't taken out the skeletal archer. This put me at a disadvantage numerically. See, the second attack skill does lower the rage bar, but it still has a cooldown, which means I can't just use it on all three of the targets. So while I was able to kill the skeletal archer and then get rid of the rage on the spider, there was another skeleton warrior that was able to get its special attack on me, putting my health into critical, and that's when the spider was able to finish me off. Now, I don't know if it was because I was in the tutorial or if this game just doesn't have a punishment for death, but I didn't really lose anything on dying, except for my confidence and a little bit of dignity. But it taught me a very valuable lesson. This combat is easy to pick up but difficult to master, which is like a no-duh moment to a lot of people, but you have to realize that MMOs these days don't really have that anymore. The difficulty in MMOs these days usually comes down to having better gear or pushing the right combination of buttons. There is a layer of strategy here, not just in what you're doing, but also keeping track on what the enemy is doing and what else is around you. That should be every MMO ever, but unfortunately it's only the good MMOs that have this sort of thing going on for them. Now, as I was exploring, I made my way into the ruins of what I think was an old cathedral. Something like that. It was a stone structure. There was a man inside. I think he was some sort of dark elf, perhaps? I'm not really sure. But in the corner next to the entrance that I had just came through was a book on a table. Now, me not having my memories, I of course tried to read it. But when I did, he absolutely flipped out on me. He told me that the book was his and that I wasn't allowed to touch it. So I left it alone. Now, this guy did seem a little bit crazy, but I was still kind of happy to have somebody else to talk to, maybe get some information. He introduced himself as Ryger, but he was in a very similar situation as me, stuck here without his memories. I asked him if our memories would come back, and he said no. The hags, as he described them, stole them specifically, and then left us here to die. But he did say that they come back every couple of months, and that would likely be my only opportunity to get off the island. But unfortunately, a couple of months is a little bit too long for me. That's not gonna work. When I brought up the option of possibly swimming, he said that if the currents don't kill me, something called devil sharks most definitely would. And I mean, I wasn't really serious. I never learned to swim. So swimming against the currents and with something called devil sharks was just not going to happen. I would have to look into some other option, potentially. Explore the island some more. And that's when this game's charm started to show itself. You see, unlike a bunch of other MMOs that will give you a mini-map, a bunch of HUD elements with crap all over them, put icons floating in front of your field of view or whatever, this game gives you a vague idea of what you're supposed to do, and you have to figure out how to connect those dots and get what you need done. And how you get from point A to point B is your own business. Now, I'm going to do my best to talk around it because I genuinely don't want to spoil anything. But the part of the game that hooked me the best is its quest system. You see, as I was exploring the island, I made my way to the only other landmark that was there, and it was a lighthouse. There I found a person who had all of their memories intact. They explained to me that this island was some sort of training ground for an academy, and that this was where students would take their final test. And I was apparently an alumni of this so-called academy. This was a lot of good information. It was explained to me that I was a fast learner and showed a whole lot of promise. Now, in order to get off the island, I would need to get a passcode that was numbers etched onto monoliths that have been spread across the island. If I give the numbers to him in the right order, he would be able to set a teleportation location off of the island. That would allow me to use a teleport spell and move to that location that is no longer on the island. If I did it right, I would be, well, elsewhere. But if I got it wrong, it could potentially put me inside of a wall, in the middle of the ocean, somewhere out in space, any number of dangerous or unwanted locations. So I had to make sure that I got it right. But again, this game doesn't give you any sort of quest markers. Luckily, I had already started to collect some numbers, and the hints were in... Well, the hints were not just the numbers themselves, but it also said what place the number was supposed to be in. For example, I found one of the obelisks, and it said the first digit of the coordinate is 6. So, I needed to make sure that I remembered that. I took out a journal, I wrote it down. Digit 1 is 6. Now, I wasn't sure how many digits I needed, so I had to make sure that my search was thorough. Found another obelisk that said that the third digit in the coordinate is 1. So on and so forth. Again, I don't want to spoil it, and I'm not entirely sure if the code ever changes, but I did find all of the numbers. After that, it was explained to me that I just needed to go to one of 2 teleportation pads and use the spell. Now, the spell of course did require me to find an amulet, but it turns out that that was pretty easy to do. Rather than rush to get off the island though, I wanted to do a lot more exploring. Simply because there were so many different mysteries going around that I couldn't just leave it behind. After all, there's no telling if I'll even be able to come back to this place or not. But I think I've yapped about my adventure more than enough. Now we have to talk about what makes this game such a hard sell. So, as you can clearly see, Project Gorgon isn't exactly the most pretty game. I mean, the current age of video game is jam-packed with so many particle effects and flashing lights. It's visual and mental overload. Project Gorgon doesn't really have that. It's also not scoring any points on the character customization because it's incredibly basic. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have its charm or its appeal. It just means that for a lot of people who are more visually inclined, Project Gorgon is just an ugly game. I don't mean to be mean, but I have to be honest about it. The other thing is that the music is, it's there. It's not bad or grating by any means. That being said, where this game really shines is its quest system and how it just makes my brain feel nice and wrinkly when I figure something out. Video games that actually challenge you to think and strategize and plan are so rare, and when they do happen, they're usually done in a way that makes them incredibly tedious and unfun to play. So the fact that this game was able to hook me in without using fancy graphics, particle effects, or cash shop items is very, very impressive. There's a lot to this game, is what I'm trying to say, and the best way that I could possibly describe it as is RuneScape, except significantly less obnoxious. Now, a lot of RuneScape fans would probably get mad if they heard me say that, but hear me out. RuneScape is a game, and I have played RuneScape, but it's a game that will punish you if you don't know something. If you let a player lure you into a zone with hostile creatures that you're not ready for, you'll die, lose all of your equipment, and nothing can be done except, now you know. It's not very new player friendly, and it can be very, very hostile and unforgiving at certain times, so it punishes you for not knowing. Project Gorgon, on the other hand, rewards you for experimenting. It rewards you for trying. Taking a combination of ingredients that I found on enemies and had picked up from mushrooms and stuff yielded different items that I could use in different ways. Trying to read different books gave me experience in a skill called lore. Now, I have no idea what it will be useful for, but it's really cool that I have it, and when it does come into play, I won't fail that skill check. Autopsy is a skill. Animal skinning is a skill. Swordsmanship, blocking, alchemy, magic, cooking. The list goes on and on. It has the skill depth of RuneScape, and it really wants you to go out of your way to just play around and experiment with different things. The pop-up at the beginning of the game that said that this game was all about exploration wasn't just talking about roaming over the map and looking for random treasure chests to open. Genshin. No. It wants you to explore not just the environments, but also your skills and your inventory. Play around with different items to find out what they do and how they can be useful to you as an adventurer. All of that leads me to believe that Project Gorgon is actually cooking with fire here. I'm excited to see what else the game has to offer, and this is all just from the tutorial. The tutorial was jam-packed with just different stuff to explore and find and discover that I ended up spending an extra 2 hours there. 2 hours after I could have left. And I stopped playing after I got out of the tutorial because of, time and stuff like that, but I'm excited to go back in and see what there is to do, what there is to see. And the fact that this game is in early access is also pretty exciting because it means that they have a bunch more stuff that they want to add. Now, there is a possibility that things could go sideways, but they didn't beat me over the head with Cash Shop. There were no battle passes that I was aware of. It was just an all-around enjoyable experience, and it reminded me of MMOs back when I first started playing video games. I kinda just wanted to sit and hang out. I bumped into a couple of other players while I was on the island, but I didn't really talk to them because I was too busy, doing my own adventure thing. But now that I'm off of the island, I'm excited to go see what the others are up to. Maybe they've got some stories to tell me. some tips. This is a good game, and I definitely recommend you check it out. It's available on Steam, and it's about $20. Big shout out to Daz for buying me the game and encouraging me to play it in the first place, and to be honest, I'm again sorry I didn't play it sooner. Let me know what you think about it down in the comments below, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in another video.